Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to look at a quick little introduction to square roots. If you've completed the previous videos, Intro to Exponents and Solving Linear Equations, today's lesson will be easier on you. Okay, so let's take number 4 and we square it. This gives us 16, right? 4 squared, 4 times 4 equals 16. Square root can be thought of the inverse, so going back from 16 to 4. What is the root of that square? So root 16 is root 4 squared, and you can think of it as square and root cancel each other, bang bang, and what's left is 4, like that. So let's look at some square roots here. 0 squared 0, 1 squared 1, 2 squared 4, 3 squared 9, 4 squared 16, 5 squared 25. Now square root is the opposite. So root 25 is 5. Right? Root 25, root 5 squared, 5, the root and the square cancel out, bang bang, what's left is 5. Root 16, root 4 squared, square and square root cancels out, what's left is 4. Root 16, 4. Root 9, 3 squared, squares and root cancel, left is 3. So this is some of our basic square roots here. And so here's a terminology that we use. So let a be a number such that a is greater or equal to 0. We call it a to be a perfect square number if root a is a non-negative integer. So here's some examples of perfect squares. 0, 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, etc., etc. Just a little short list like that. Why? Because if we square root it, we get a non-negative integer. So root 36 is 6, therefore 36 is a perfect square. If you take the square root of a non-perfect square, like say root 6, then it will be an irrational number. That is, a number that cannot be written as a fraction. The decimal form of an irrational number is a non-repeating pattern that continues forever. So here we have root 6, non-repeating pattern that continues on forever. So it's what's called an irrational number. Okay, so let's do some algebra with our square root knowledge. So solve for x. If we have x squared equals 9, we want to solve for x. Before, when we were doing division and multiplication, we would do the inverse. Here we're doing the exact same thing. The inverse of the square is the square root. So we square root both sides, and the square root cancels out, and what's left is x. Now when we square root both sides, we have to write plus or minus in front of that. Because, I'll show you in a sec. So plus or minus in front. So that means x is plus 3, x equals 3, or x equals minus 3. That's how you read this. This means x equals plus or minus 3, like that. So 3 or negative 3. And so we have two solutions to this initial equation. And we're going to check our answer. If we plug in 3, 3 squared is 9, so we're good. If we plug in negative 3, all of that squared is also 9. So we have two solutions. So whenever we have square and we're square rooting both sides, we have to write plus or minus in front of it, like that. Okay, let's look at the next example. B, root x equals 4. And so the opposite of square root is square. So we square both sides like that. Square and square root cancel out. What's left is x equals 16. And we're going to check it. Root 16 gives root 4 squared, which is root 4 to 4 squared. They cancel out, and what's left is 4. So it is a correct solution. C, x squared plus 5 equals 30. So we want to get rid of this 5, so we have x squared on its own. So we go minus 5 to both sides. X squared equals 25. Square root to both sides, so the square and square root cancels out. X equals plus or minus 5. And so x equals 5 or x equals negative 5. And we're going to check. Plug in 5. 5 squared plus 5, 25 plus 5 equals 30. So we're good. Negative 5, all of that squared, right? That's all of negative 5 squared. So we get 25 plus 5 equals 30. We're good. So we have two solutions to this equation. D, 3x squared plus 4 equals 31. We'll get rid of this 4 first, so minus 4 to both sides. 3x squared equals 27. We want to get rid of this 3 as well. So we divide by 3 to both sides. X squared equals 9. Square root both sides to cancel the square here. And it's plus or minus root 9 on the other side, which is the same as plus or minus 3. So the two solutions are x equals 3 or x equals negative 3, like that. Okay, time for you to practice. Go ahead and solve each of these equations. Okay, A, root y equals 7. So we square both sides to cancel the root, and so bang bang here. So y equals 49 as such. B, x squared equals 36. So we square root both sides, cancels out the square, bang bang. Plus or minus root 36. This is plus or minus 6. So in other words, x equals 6 or x equals negative 6 is the solution to this equation. Okay, C. X squared minus 2 equals 62. Plus 2 on both sides, x squared equals 64. Square root both sides, cancels out the square, bang bang. X equals plus or minus root 64, which is plus or minus 8. So x equals 8 or x equals minus 8 are the two solutions to this equation. D. Want to get rid of this 10 here, so plus 10 to both sides. 2x squared equals 50. Divide by 2 on both sides, x squared equals 25. Root both sides, square and the root cancels out. X equals plus or minus root 25, which is 5. So our two solutions are x equals 5 or x equals negative 5. And that's it. I'll see you guys in the next video.